Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Paideia in the Know. Thanks so much for joining us. We are back from last week's trip, hiatus when I was in Arizona. So good to be back. And I am with the lovely and talented Steve Mangurten. So Steve and I actually used to work together back in the day at Pop Sugar. He is an incredibly talented DP. And now you're here in Los Angeles and freelance and doing all the things. So for everyone who maybe doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about what you're up to and how you got started in all of this.
Like you said, I'm a director of photography, cinematographer, and I shoot all kinds of different projects. Been working freelance for the last 10 plus years.
Yep.
Doing music videos, commercials.
Yeah.
I worked with you at Pop Sugar and E, doing a lot of fashion, beauty, DIY, fitness videos, done some short films, feature films, a couple documentaries,
all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of different things.
And I feel like even now you're still, you kind of have your hands in everything, which is awesome. Like, it gives you such an interesting look with your work because you're not just channeled into one thing. You do a variety of stuff. So it's good because you can sort of blend all these looks together. You're not just married to one look, which is nice. So love that. Well, we're excited to have you here. So thanks so much again for joining.
Thank you for having me.
For those of you who may not know, we are here outside in Santa Monica at a cafe. So forgive the noise. And it's a little windy today here in Santa Monica, but it's beautiful. So can't be too upset about that. So, all right, Steve, so you and I worked on lots of different projects over the years. And I think one of the things that we've both been working on for a long time is really mastering visual branding and for client-funded projects that we work on and then even just for our own work. So can you speak a little bit to why you think it's so important for brands and influencers to really brand themselves visually?
I think it's definitely important for brands to brand themselves visually. I mean, it gives you something recognizable, a style. If you look at something that, if it's a commercial for something or even just a product video, photos, a website, something, even the products, that you can tell what company it came from because it fits the visual style. So even without thinking about it, if you see the product or if you're scrolling through Facebook and see one of their videos, you instantly know it's them because it's recognizable. And even to a certain extent, if you really kind of master what your brand is, what your style is, other companies or people may want to kind of emulate what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, this person, they'll say, oh, they have your look. They'll have the Paideia look, whatever. If you have a brand or whatever it is, then, like I said, we used to work at Pop Sugar, did a lot of that stuff. They have a very specific brand. Yeah. I've shot a lot of videos for them. I was looking through a website the other day, and my girlfriend was sitting next to me and says, oh, it looks like those videos all look really much like Pop Sugar. And it was, but she could recognize it without seeing the logo of the company, without knowing what everything was, just scrolling through quickly because it's a very specific branding.
And I think that's such a powerful thing for a brand, and particularly from a marketing perspective, to have a viewer, a consumer, be able to recognize right off the bat, that's your work, that's your brand, that's your content, is a really, really powerful way to build community. It's a powerful way to communicate with your community, and it's a great way to bring people into the brand who maybe aren't that familiar with it in the past and get them introduced because they're like, oh, I recognize that. Let me see what else they're doing. Let me see what they're up to, what's new, what's more. Oh, we have a question. So what are some of your favorite Instagram accounts and brands that capture a great recognizable visual? So yeah, I think Pop Sugar is a great example. I think Glossier is really killing it at the game right now. They're just so good at it. There's a French Instagram makeup artist named Violet FR, and she's also a Lancome expert, and she now lives in New York, but her work is really well branded. It's really strong visually. It's really smart. Andy Swimwear is another one that's really good. I think there are a lot of them like all over the place and kind of popping up, but I think one of the things that you really want to do is you want to know like what's your aesthetic, but think about it in a more technical way, like what's your light like, you know, are you kind of dark and moody and sexy, or are you bright and poppy and happy, you know, like what is that, and kind of find things that help bring that through consistently into your work. So like if you're bright and poppy and happy, you need to shoot outside quite a bit, you need to shoot towards a window, you know, you need to be in a well-lit studio. But if you're like kind of a moodier, sexier vibe, then you don't want to shoot outside in the middle of the afternoon like today where it's like really bright outside.
And I think defining a specific color palette is also really important. Because even if not all of your products or everything that you do is necessarily in that color palette, shooting photos or video or Instagram Live or whatever you're doing in, say, a room that has that color palette. Or, if you're on a couch, the pillow is the couch. If you have a backdrop for your photos that fit in that color palette.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And that's actually a great way to be able to include that even if you don't have the benefit of a huge team helping you. The lighting can be a little trickier, but having a consistent backdrop or a consistent style, way that your shoots are styled is easier to achieve. So I do think a lot of people are shooting content on their iPhones these days. It's inexpensive. It's always in your pocket. We've always got it on us for better or worse, particularly for social. So where do you think iPhone videos really succeed in the digital space?
I think iPhone videos succeed definitely on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and it allows you really to easily create content, even live like we're doing right now, and just reach an audience with social media. And it's so easy to do because almost everybody has a smartphone capable of creating good visuals.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it was interesting because you were telling me off camera that there was actually a film submitted at Sundance that was shot on an iPhone this year, and that there's a new show on Netflix that was shot on a phone.
There are a few. A couple of years ago, Tangerine, I think, was one of the first. That won. I think it won one of the prizes at Sundance, shot entirely on an iPhone.
Amazing.
And then, Steven Soderbergh's new show, High Flying Bird, shot entirely on iPhone.
Yeah, so it's definitely doable to make cool content with a phone, but I think they're probably using a little help and have some lenses, and
it helps. There's a lot of add-ons you can get. Like what we have right now with these microphones.
Yeah,
helps. You can download some apps that allow you more specific control of your camera, so you can control exposure, keep it consistent. And then there are attachment lenses that will stick on in front of your camera and allow you more control over the field of view of your camera instead of just the normal, wide shot you get from your phone.
Yeah.
A little more control.
Totally. But, it's fascinating that it's even doable.
Yeah.
If you had told me 5 years ago that we would have been able to do that, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
I would have told you you were a crazy person.
Of course, control over your space and lighting.
Lighting.
Stuff helps.
All day, every day lighting. So I think that's key. So we do have a question about other things to get for your iPhone to help support. So these mics that we use for this interview series are Rode. Rode is a great microphone company. They're actually professional mics that you use in regular production, so they're really awesome. I also love a tripod, so my phone right now is on a phone tripod. There's a whole bunch of different ones that you can buy. Mine is by Joby because it folds up really easily and I can throw it in my bag, but they make a ton of different ones. I also love portable lights. There's a great LED, a dialable LED that's literally the size of a credit card, and that's made by Aperture. And I think you can just Google Aperture and it will come up. And Aperture actually makes real lights too, like studio lights and actual equipment that's far beyond what a normal person would probably want or need in their house. But they do make some that are meant for home use. There are a lot of other lights out there. There's a lot of, the ring lights and all that kind of stuff, which is...
For your phone, you have Lumi cases and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And all that stuff is great. But I think it's just kind of a matter of playing with it and figuring out what's going to work for your environment. Do you want it to be mobile? Do you want to set it up at your house? And then just kind of messing with it and seeing what you like the look of. Do you want a lot of really bright light? I feel like there's ring lights are good if you're doing a beauty tutorial. But if you're trying to shoot pretty homey stuff, it's a little too much. But if you can get a dialable one, then that's kind of a different story.
I mean, every light has its purpose, what it's really meant for, what it's designed for, what it excels at. So it's kind of a matter of practicing with different lights and figuring out what works the best, doing a little research. Learning a little bit about lighting. That helps a lot.
And I think also learning how to set them, because I feel like one of the mistakes I see all the time is everyone sets it directly in front of their face, like right here. And that's not really how you want to light it. That's a mess. It looks bad. So actually, tell us a little bit about how,
style.
I mean, I guess technically it's a style, but tell us a little bit about how, like, some tricks that you use to light to make it look pretty and even. And
well, I mean, definitely for the fashion and beauty stuff, like you said, being bright is always good. Having an even light for the face, so like the ring light, like you said, having it in front. Keeps the skin tones looking even. I mean, I always like to do backlights. Get a light behind the person. It can light up their hair, so you can see the hair a little bit better, especially if it's darker hair. It helps backlighting. Hair light.
And I think a light down here, so you guys can't see my hand, a light down below that's angled a little is a trick that we used a lot for beauty to make people look better rested. It makes your skin look more clear, and it makes it look more polished and even.
If your key light, your main light, is above the camera, above eye level, then the light coming down can create shadows underneath the face, in the neck, in the eyes, because of eyebrows and all that. So having something underneath helps fill that stuff in. You just have to be very careful about the intensity of each light.
Totally.
You definitely don't want your light from underneath to be stronger than your key light, because that looks creepy.
But like a little bump can help, or sometimes even just a bounce. Like
the white card, a piece of paper on the table helps. So it's the important thing is balancing the intensity of all of the lights that you have.
Right. And the goal is to look even and pretty. Like, I mean, if that's your look, is to look even and pretty. So.
And to balance the lighting on yourself or your subject, whatever it is, with the atmospheric lighting in the room.
Exactly.
If you're in a bright room, you need brighter lights. If you're in a dark room, you don't want to do too much, because
it's
you want to create, a light so that you can be seen, but if you start to do too much, it becomes very artificial looking. So you kind of have to do what's appropriate for the space that you're in.
So we do actually have another question real quick asking about what edit programs we use for phones. So I actually belong to the Adobe suite, which is the Creative Cloud. And so I have that downloaded on my phone, and there's an edit program that's basically a version of Adobe on my phone, and I can edit through that. So, but you have to belong to the Adobe group to be able to download that app. I think there's a free version to it, but don't mark my words on that 100%, because I may just be making that up. That may not be true.
I'm not sure.
But I think I remember seeing when I downloaded it that there was like a free version, but because I have the cloud, then I can just like do it automatically. Adobe always saves the day. Adobe for the win. I know there's so many other, there's always, there's a trial version. Oh, okay, good to know. So so you can test it out, see if you like it. I love it. It works like a baby version of the Adobe suites. And it's great, and you can save it to the cloud, which is nice. So you can continue to access it, and you have a lot of control. You can put graphics in, and you can do title cards, and it's how I actually edit these videos. So we'll record it, and then I'll go back and screen record this interview, and then I'll edit it in Adobe. So I'll put graphics in and all that kind of stuff. So I found it really helpful, but I'm used to that system, and there are a lot of editing systems people love what they love, but I've just worked in Adobe for so long at this point that to me it's second nature. I don't have to learn something else. I have enough going on. I don't need to learn another editing system. So it works for me. But I think, you got to find what you love.
If you're on an iPhone, I'm pretty sure Apple has a mobile version of iMovie or Final Cut, something like that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is like what you're familiar with, and when I was an editor a long time ago, we did Adobe for photo editing. So I just learned Adobe, and then when I transitioned to production, it made sense to learn After Effects. So, and like the Adobe editing processes. So I don't know, to each their own, but that's the one that I love, and that's what I use on a regular basis. Okay, so I hear, back to the questions in the interview. So I hear time and time again from a lot of people that they think getting great video out of their phone is A, impossible, or B, would require a crew, like an expensive shoot, an expensive crew. I don't necessarily feel like the two mediums are comparable. I think shooting with a crew and real cameras is a totally separate process to trying to shoot with a phone. And I think what you're trying to achieve out of the two is a different thing. But I think recognizing that, what would you say are probably the top 3 things that someone can do to help create better digital video using their phone?
Well, obviously having a big crew helps, but that won't be one of them.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing if you're by yourself just shooting with a phone is the location.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just the location, but specifically within the location, what are you using in your frame?
Yeah.
Where you point the camera is just as important within a location as picking that location on a map. I mean, you want to definitely pick a place that is evenly lit. For phones, they don't quite have the capabilities of more expensive cameras in terms of being able to see details in very bright and very dark places at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you can see in this shot right here, it's exposing for us because we have faces and the phone knows to look for faces.
Yeah.
But behind us, way up here, this is extremely bright. There's a parking lot back there, but you can't see it because it's so bright. And that's one of the kind of things that you want to avoid. The phone cameras can't really handle that kind of difference in exposure. Even this light here on my shoulder, on my hand, actually, it's really bright.
Yeah.
The darker shirt, it's pushing the edges, but not actually terrible.
Yeah.
But you can see that's the kind of stuff that you want to look for in picking a location to shoot. Because the ambient light is definitely important. It saves you from lighting a lot.
Right.
Artificially.
Yeah, I think playing to your ambient light is super important. I mean, I would say light is almost the most important thing. You really want to be able to balance some of that light. So, I mean, we're outside at a cafe, and there's a limit to how much we can achieve with our shot here in a cafe. But I picked something that made our faces look good, and then we'll just deal with this piece of sky being blown out. But at least we have some like nice greenery behind us, and our faces look nice.
You also have to determine what's actually important and what's not.
Right.
If it's not important, it doesn't matter if you see it.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, looking for a spot where it has nice lighting, where the stuff in the frame is right, because that's another thing you really want to look for. Is kind of your art direction. Per se.
Well, and
what's in the frame?
Does that environment and the frame support whatever it is this video is about?
Yeah.
So if you're shooting a beauty tutorial, it would be really weird to shoot that in a baby's nursery. Right? But if you're shooting, if you're a mom and you're shooting a video about how you get ready for the day, and the reality is you have to sit on the floor of your kid's room while they're like playing in their crib or something, then it makes sense. But you need to make sure that the environment is somehow contributing to the video, because only 37% of people on social are watching video with the sound on. So you want to make sure that your visuals are telling the story that you want them to tell. And ultimately, you're able to pull those strings like a puppet master, you know, like you're picking the environment in hopes that it's supporting what you're saying, or it's telling the audience something that maybe you don't have time to say. So like if we were shooting this at the beach and you saw the ocean in the background, and you know, we wouldn't really have to say that we're at the beach. We might, but it's visually very apparent like where we are and what we're doing.
And you want to be in a location that supports what you're doing. Like you said, you want something that supports the color palette that you're trying to achieve if you have one selected.
And I think the other key one is investing in a tripod, because it's really difficult to hold a phone still for an extended period of time. And by extended period of time, I mean anything over about 30 to 60 seconds. And I think it's also challenging when you maybe aren't accustomed to shooting to know how to move your body with a camera so that you can get a shot that doesn't make people feel dizzy.
Yeah, I mean, if your style is just documentary, day in my life, shooting with an iPhone thing, then sure, walk around with it. But if you are trying to do anything else, definitely having a tripod helps.
Yeah.
Being stable helps people focus on what's in the frame. They're not distracted by the movement.
Right. Yeah. And people are going to turn your video off and they're going to turn your shoot off if it's like dizzy and crazy looking.
Yeah. I mean, again, everything goes to drawing attention to where you want it to be in the frame.
Yeah.
Whether it's you or it's something that you're looking at or whatever it is, you want as little to distract from that as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, and I would say just selfishly, the third one is mics.
Yeah.
I think mics are it's a game changer for the phone because obviously the microphone on the phone is not built for interview audio or like speaking to camera clearly audio. And you need something to help cut out the ambient noise and you need something to help direct some of that sound and have the phone pick up the sound that you want it to pick up. And I think a mic is an easy and inexpensive way to be in control of that situation.
Yeah, I mean, right now in here, we're outside for one, and we're outside of a cafe with a lot of tables and a lot of people.
Yeah.
So with just a regular phone mic, you probably wouldn't really be able to hear us.
Yeah, it would, and that would be sad. That'd be such a loss. I mean, I feel like it'd be a loss. So, what are some of your favorite tricks when you're shooting on an iPhone to make that video look better? Like, do you always angle it a certain way, like towards a window or away from a window, or like what do you kind of do to help put yourself out there on the best possible foot?
Well, again, I mean, picking the right location, the right direction to point the camera is the most important. Mentioning a window, I would always have you use the window as a light if you can. I mean, it looks nice, it's natural. Have your camera, next to the window, and use it to light your scene.
Yeah.
If it's of yourself, face the window, camera facing you. If you put the window in frame, phone cameras typically can't handle that kind of brightness, so you again get this, it can be distracting.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a really good point that maybe not everyone is aware of. So the lens on a camera and the lens here in the phone, the lens operates like your eye, right? So it retracts when it's really bright and then it gets bigger when it's darker, right? So it can find more light. But the lens on your camera isn't as sophisticated as like a built camera lens. So it can't retract and expand in the same way that your eye can to see different variants of light in a small combined space. So like if you think about this little rectangle that the phone is shooting in, it's really, really hard for it to see something bright and something not as bright in the same frame because the lens, the eye of the camera is not as sophisticated as like my eye or your eye.
Yeah, I mean,
so you just want to use your environment. You want to manipulate your environment to set the lens up to succeed instead of putting it in a situation where it's not able to cope, like it can't do as well.
I mean, the iris can adjust if everything is even. If it's bright, it can make it darker so it's exposed properly. If it's dark, it can come a little bit brighter depending on how dark it is to compensate for it. But variations, and it's the sensor itself in the camera, the electronics as well, that are responsible for interpreting that data.
Yep.
And I mean, my professional camera that I use for shooting commercials weighs fully built with all the accessories, weighs like 20-30 pounds. It's basically a computer inside of it.
Yeah.
It has all of that processing power to deal with that kind of data.
Right. Well, and
phones are not built to excel in that way.
And your real camera, your built camera, gives you the ability to dictate what the important things are, and like you're able to tell it, I want you to read this situation this way, and you can control your f-stop and you can control other parts of the camera and the camera's eye to be able to explore that in a way that you can't really do that with the phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's just like setting yourself up to succeed.
So you want to look for that. And I mean, aside from that, a window also gives, if it's a big window and there's not just hard sunlight coming through it, if it's ambient, it gives you a nice soft light.
Totally.
Which looks really nice, especially on faces.
Yeah, which is why people love to shoot their cars.
Exactly.
Your car is like a dreamy light box.
Exactly.
You always look so good in the car.
The windshield's basically just a big soft light in front of you, so your selfies look amazing.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Same thing happens in a house with windows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as the light isn't streaming in that window, then you have a perfect light box.
The direct
right
sunlight
there.
on your face would not look as good.
Right.
But the soft light does.
Yeah, it looks great. So point your face
helps.
towards the window and try not to put yourself in a position where the camera is trying to read super bright and super dark at the same time.
Aside from that, picking an angle that has some depth to it.
Yeah.
You kind of want to design your shots in layers if possible.
Yep.
So, you have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. So
Yep.
you have your subject in the middle. You want to set the background a little bit farther away. Depending on your situation, if it's far enough away, it could be a little bit out of focus. So your audience's attention isn't drawn into the background.
Yep.
And stays focused on you because you're in focus.
Yep.
And you can even have something in the foreground if
it makes sense.
If it makes sense and it's not distracting.
Yeah.
So you have that layers, it creates depth, it makes for a more interesting shot.
Totally. And I think it's also, if you are going to do that, like let's say you have a bookcase behind you or something, do yourself a favor and look in the frame and take a look at what's behind you and groom it if you need to. Because you don't want it to look cluttered and like messy, because then it does become distracting and it takes the eyes off the subject and it puts it back there in the bookcase. So I think just doing yourself a favor and kind of grooming everything so it looks really polished and really professional. And it's also a great way to pop in products if you're promoting something, or if your company has something, or something that's in the color scheme of your company. So if your company colors are blue and red, it would be a great spot to stack a couple books that are blue and maybe a few flowers that are red, just like subtle ways to keep driving like your branding and your visuals back into the eyes of who's watching your content. So if you had to, let's see, I honestly feel like we covered all the questions.
Yeah.
So if there are not any more questions from the viewers and you don't have anything else to add,
No, I feel like
we covered a lot.
Decent job of covering.
I know, I think we did cover a lot.
Yeah.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you.
My work is on my website, sjmdp.com.
Perfect.
My name is Stephen Jared Mangurten. So those are my initials. And then Director of Photography, DP.
I love it.
Google my name. There aren't many of them out there. So.
Yeah. So good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was so fun. And guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you next Wednesday. All right. Bye.